Greetings, my beautiful people. Happy Friday. Though for me, every day is Monday and also every day is Sunday. So every day is kind of the same to me. But regardless, happy Friday, my beautiful friends. And welcome to the Secrets of a Witch podcast with me, Sabrina Scott, where I talk about everything from life, love, healing, magic, witchcraft, tarot, mediumship, spirit work, spirituality, and everything in between. And today, the topic is negativity. And my cat, Awaz, as always, says hello. So, negativity, right? Like, thank you, Awaz. Clearly, she has opinions about this. So, negativity. There's so many different ways that we can think about this word and this concept. But what I want to talk about today is about people with a bit of a negative mindset, right? Like where they complain about literally everything under the sun, like stupid shit, right? Like it snows, they complain and like shout. Like they stub their toe, they scream and like swear at everybody. Like stupid stuff. Like I had a conversation recently with somebody. This is fucking ridiculous, honestly. But somebody who was so offended at seeing like wrinkly old man penises in the changing room at the gym. And this was a man, obviously. And this dude went on this like literal 30 to 40 minute rant about this. And like how offensive it was and how he didn't want to see it and like blah blah. And like I just fully don't comprehend why it's a fucking big deal. A. B. Who fucking cares? And C. Like why can't we all just have self-control to like, I don't know, fucking not be so distracted by stupid shit. So it got me thinking. Like it was like that. It was an annoying conversation, but the positive side of that is it got me thinking about like what is this about? Like why are people this way? Like what is the deal? And like in what way can people who complain about fucking everything like that other people are doing, like, oh my god, the neighbor is so loud, or there's old dudes not wearing towels in the gym, or like whatever, why do people do this? And like what needs to happen in their mindset or their perspective to change this kind of thing, right? And don't get me wrong, like I've had my moments of that, but it was more when I was a teenager or in my early 20s than like anytime, anywhere even close to recently. And so it always kind of surprises me when I meet people in their 30s and 40s who are still that way, you know what I mean? And it just really underscores the fact that we really are all responsible for our own mindset, for our own healing, for our own journey, and that age and aging is no guarantee that any of us will become happier, become more peaceful, have a better mindset, be less negative, etc. Like it really is all about us taking personal responsibility over ourselves, our mindset, our environment, our lives, and not being a negative Nancy. So let's talk about this. So what I feel is that all of this negative mindset, like this type of bullshit that I was just giving examples of, I think it tends to happen when people have an external locus of control rather than an internal locus of control, right? So let me give an example. So that person using, like, we're having this conversation about it. And as always, I'm not putting this person on blast. Though everyone should know by now, if we have a conversation, I might use that as inspiration to talk about something else. So like everyone in my life, be warned. But you know what, that being said, I don't really talk about my conversations with close friends on this podcast. It's mostly like random people that I don't know, which is interesting. But anyway, so this person was like trying to convince me of their point, right? And he was like, what if some old wrinkly man was like in his backyard and like your living room like had a clear view I don't know, like into the backyard where this guy was like naked sunbathing or whatever? Like, what if like the people who lived across from you, like you can always see them have sex through the window? And I think my like response shocked him, because I was like, literally, I would not care. Like, I would just continue doing whatever it is that I'm doing. Like, I would just be focused on myself, like cooking lunch, doing work on the computer, reading a book. Like, I might just like notice it for a second, but then be like, oh, okay, that's just Bob over there doing his Bob thing, like whatever. Like, I literally could not give a single shit. Like, and if my neighbors were having sex in the window across the street from me all day, every day, I literally would not really care. Would I be watching it all day? No, I would be focused on myself doing my own thing. And so I think this is a really good example, actually, about external locus of control versus internal locus of control. So someone with an external locus of control, and what does that mean? That means that the external factors are going to influence their internal vibe, their mood, their mindset, more than what is going on inside them, right? So it's external control. Their mood is controlled by external factors. They're like more at the whim of whatever random shit is happening outside of them, right? So someone being annoyed at like penises at the gym, or like their neighbor sunbathing nude outside, or like whatever. All of that is external stuff. It's stuff outside of us. It's stuff that we don't have control over, right? Because we don't have control over other people. In those circumstances, actually, I think there's some laws around that here where I live in Toronto, where even if you are in your private space, if someone can see you nude, I think there is actually a bylaw against that. So that's a thing. But other than that, like, I think ultimately, like, if someone is so bothered and distracted by these external sources, they are allowing these external things, like what other people are doing. And again, we can't control what other people do. We can't control how other people behave. We can only control ourselves, right? And so when someone is so grumpy about something like this, right, it shows that they don't really have control over their own internal state. It shows they don't have control over what their body is doing, what their mind is doing, right? Because when I was having this conversation, this person was like, oh, but like, I can't look away. Like, it's just right there. It's like in your face. It's like these old dudes in the changing room are just wandering around. Like, I just can't not look. And it's like, I find this so alien because, like, first of all, I think it's homophobic. That's like first point. Second point is like, I know what it's like to be around naked old people. Like, I've been to many like women only spa experiences in Toronto, and some of the women are much older with their vaginas flapping and their boobs down to their knees. And am I disgusted by that? Absolutely not. Like, I think actually the body is beautiful. Like, I think these old women are beautiful and confident and have been through hell and back and have lived to tell the tale. And I fucking respect their body confidence. And I think that is fucking cool. And I think they're old enough. They've earned the right to do whatever the literal fuck they want, to be honest. And that is my opinion. But do I spend my whole time staring at these ladies? No. I absolutely don't. Like, I notice somebody in passing, or if they're sitting next to me in like the saltwater pool that is kind of small, like, you know, I might like just like smile in their direction and nod silently as like a greeting, but I'm focused on myself. Like, I'm focused on the hot water. I'm focused on what's going on in my head. I'm focused on my spiritual experience of being like in the sauna or in the spa or whatever, even if some people are having an annoying loud conversation over on the side of the pool where it says quiet area. Like, will that be mildly annoying? Sure. But it's like, I can control myself. I can control my mind. I can calm my mind, calm my body, and I can have my own experience by myself, even if I'm surrounded by people who are doing things that I might not like. And I think this is a crucial skill for happiness, and I think it's a crucial skill for a good life. And so I think people who have this external locus of control, like, that is really something to work on. It's something to notice. It's something to overcome. I feel it's a very adolescent way to live life. That's just how I see it. And so it's a great example, though. So I'm thankful to this person for having this conversation with me, because it's like, you know, very thought-provoking on like, what is about this that annoys me personally, this attitude. of that person being annoyed. And I think it is really about that. It is about this difference between the external locus of control versus the internal locus of control, right? And so the internal locus of control, let's talk about that for a second, just for a contrast. So when we have an internal locus of control, like we're able to self-regulate, no matter to what extent, like craziness is going on around us, no matter what's going on around us, we're able to self-regulate, we're able to have some self-control. And obviously this is more around like normal life stuff than around anything traumatic. Obviously, that's what I'm talking about. Like, I'm not talking about crazy, violent, scary stuff. Like, that's obviously traumatic, like for anybody, no matter if your locus of control is internal or external, like traumatic stuff is traumatic, like for sure. What I'm talking about is not that. What I'm talking about is like normal day-to-day shit. Like this person complaining about the old dudes in the locker room, right? And so when we have an internal locus of control, we realize that we can't control other people, but what we do have control over is ourselves. And so one of the ways that I really see this in how some people talk is when people say, you made me do this. You made me feel ABC. You made me feel offended. You made me feel sad. When you did A, it made me feel C. All of that is very passive language in terms of, the person speaking. And it also puts all of the control on and all the blame and all the responsibility on the other person. I'll give you an example. And I think I've talked about this in another podcast episode. Maybe I have. Oh, Troya, hello. Maybe I have, maybe I haven't. But I remember one time I was waiting for the streetcar after a concert, and it was like 1 a.m. This was just a few months ago. And some fucking jackass guy, like, drove his stupid little car, stopped right next to me, and he was like, hey, and I was like, what? And he said, you're very ugly. And then he laughed and drove away. And maybe 10 years ago, I would have been like so upset by this. But honestly, it did not affect my night whatsoever. Like, I've kind of forgot about it as soon as it happened. And I just kind of like laughed to myself because I just knew that it wasn't and is not true. And so I just use this as an example, not to say that like I'm like Jesus or anything. Clearly, I'm not Jesus. For anyone who is confused, please figure that out. But I bring this up because I think a lot of people would probably be upset by that, right? And again, I'm not saying this to say that I'm superhuman. I would have been upset by that too, like 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago. But now, my healing, my self-confidence, my self-esteem, my self-worth, all of that is so strong and so stable that it really doesn't matter what insult someone else throws at me. I truly will not care. And I truly will not be in any way hurt by it, swayed by it, afraid of it, whatever. I just don't react. And so, someone might say, oh, that person insulting me, it made me feel bad. Or or like, you made me feel bad. But it's like, that person did not make anyone do anything. It's like, we need to have some responsibility over our reactions. And our reactions are not a foregone conclusion. And so, like, if we're insulted and we feel bad about it, I just see that as a really interesting and important data point where we can say, okay, well, if this upsets me, I must still have some healing work to do on some wounding that I must have in this area around which I was insulted. So if I still felt ugly, and like there was a part in my life where I absolutely did feel ugly, like when I was a teenager, I felt super ugly. And so if that person said that to me when I was 18, 19, I would have been devastated, right? And so you'll notice how that same insult is going to land differently based on the person it is being directed at. And so I'm not saying this to victim blame. That's like not the fucking point whatsoever. But the point is to say we have a lot more control over our emotions, over our internal state than a lot of us like to think that we do. And so really no one can make us feel anything. And I know that might sound controversial, But it is what I've learned over time as I've healed more and more and more and developed a stronger sense of self-control, a stronger internal locus of control where I can control my own self. And if I am upset or triggered by something, which almost never happens anymore, but when it does, I can be curious and I can say, okay, why am I hurt by this? What does this mean that I'm still working through? What does this mean that I need to love and have attention to and care for so I can heal that wound so that I cannot react that way anymore? Right? So it's like the same bar, but it's going to have completely different response depending on who it is being directed to. But someone who is actually confident is just going to be like, whatever. And so it's the same thing with this example of like the penises in the changing room. It's like, are we so easily, do we have such little self-control and such little ability to focus on our own self-directed tasks that we are so easily thrown off by the most boring of external stimulus or the most like banal thing in our environment that is not exactly as we want it to be? And don't get me wrong, like I think there's something to be said for a controlled, ritualized environment. Like whenever I'm writing or painting, like I personally love to have the lights dim. I love to have music going. Like there's certain rituals that I'll do in order to create the perfect environment for me to be able to get my best artwork out of my body, right? But that is an intentional, ritualized situation. At home, it's a controlled space. But when I'm outside of the home, I know that I can control my body and that's it. And so I think being able to be resilient, to have that self-control, to have that focus, I think focus is crucial. And to be able to just cultivate ourselves in this way, I think is such a beautiful and important and healing thing to be able to do. And so if you are someone who is steeped in negativity and you find yourself annoyed by like every little which thing outside of your person, I think it would be a really good idea just to sit with that, to get curious and to wonder if there's another way to live and to perhaps move towards what that might be for you. As I think one of the things this conversation with this person taught me is like, wow, I forgot that other people really live this way. It's like we live on completely different planets. It was like shocking. And like I forgot that like there are people that are just like that, you know, and I think it's completely optional. And I think that's an optimistic take. Like it is optional. Like if you are someone who is so controlled by external circumstances, that does not have to be your forever. You can learn to be someone who is controlled by your internal mind, body, spirit, soul, your own internal everything, right? So I think that's an optimistic note personally. And so if you do have trouble with this, I hope you don't, but if you do, I think focusing on the self is really good. Like when we focus so much on other people and what they're doing, what they're not doing, like, oh my God, these guys are so like inconsiderate and they're so like they have no modesty and they're just not considerate of other people and other people not wanting to see their old wrinkly man penises. It's just like, what the fuck is that about? Like, just fucking chill, dude. Like, just take a breath, focus on yourself. And so if you find yourself doing that, like this external complaining about ABC, like a grumpiness, like where you're judging other people, where you are coming up with fantasy stories about what is wrong with them to make them behave that way, you are basically wasting your time, you're engaging in delusion, and you're avoiding what the real problem is, which is your own lack of self-control over your reactions and responses to what is going on. That's what I would say, my friends. And so if you're surrounded by people like this, I would like highly recommend rethinking that, because often this is their own journey to go on, right? This has nothing to do with you. Like this mindset cannot be it's like not something we can really convince anyone out of, unfortunately. Like, it is everyone's own individual journey. And so what I've learned is I just leave people to their journey, you know, like unless I'm working with them as a student or a client, in which case I fucking love being able to actually help people with this. But in my personal life, like, it's a no for me. But if you are someone who does need help with this, I'm happy to help you. And I think it is such a beautiful area for coaching, for tarot, for spiritual consulting. So if anyone would like my help on this, do reach out. Do reach out, because I think it's possible to shift this with some assistance if you want to. So if anyone's interested in that, if this is an area where you need help and you want help, feel free to holla CEO@sabrinamscott.com. Or send me a hello on Instagram, Sabrina M. Scott. And yes, that is what I have to say about this. This is my rant about nativity. I just think it's optional. Like, I think we do not have to live this way. There's so many better ways to live. I also think that complaining and being negative, it is a really quick and easy way to create relational intimacy between people. Like, people make fast friends by complaining about the same thing. And personally, I am not interested in those type of relationships. I would rather build connections and relationships based on positivity, kinship, fun and exciting things, and all of that. So that's also something to consider if you are a negative person. Is like, are all of your friendships and social relationships contingent on you staying that negative person to maintain your social ties? Interesting question, right? Okay, friends, that's it for today. Again, happy fucking Friday. I hope everyone has had a wonderful week. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Again, if you would like coaching or mentorship on anything that I discussed in this episode today, feel free to reach out. I do not bite. I swear I'm actually nice, even though I seem sassy on this podcast sometimes. CEO@sabrinamscott.com, or say hello on Instagram, Sabrina M. Scott. Of course, my website is sabrinamscott.com. You can shop my super cute merch at shopsabrinamscott.com. And of course, you can check out my YouTube at youtube.com/Sabrina Scott. I do a weekly tarot vibe check. I'm starting to do them on Saturdays. And so the one that was applicable for this past week, it is the most recent one under the live category. So if you do want to have a recap for the past week, have an excuse to just self-reflect on what all you just went through this week, it is right there for you. Okay, friends, catch you on the flip side. Thank you so much for listening, and have a wonderful day. Bye.